Trans athletes are back in the spotlight in a big way in 2024. Following a brief hiatus after the Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney controversy last year, it seems some large companies haven't learnt their lesson and are jumping right back on the trans bandwagon to push their woke agenda onto their customers. Sky News All Stars Rita Panahi, Piers and Megyn Kelly reveal the companies who are turning their backs on female athletes in favour of trans athletes to front their campaigns. Rip Curl is the latest brand to feature a transgender woman as the face of their campaign, with Sky News All-Star Rita Panahi slamming the company for ditching a heroic female surfer for a trans athlete.
Here in Australia, Rip Curl, here we go, James, go woke, go broke. What are these clowns doing?
Oh, well, I think let's just put this one up here on the screen here. The new is a celebrity endorsement that they've got here.
Ambassador.
It's celebrity ambassador. Sasha Lowerson, who is a transgender, I guess, surfer?
A transgender woman surfer, in other words, a bloke who's competing in the girls'
and they
things.
got rid of Bethany Hamilton, who survived a shark biting off her arm. She still surfs, and because she was outspoken about protecting women's sport, it appears that she's been dumped. And this individual,
let's get behind, what's her name, Bethany?
Bethany Hamilton.
Let's get behind Bethany Hamilton. If you know her, give her a shout out for her brave stance.
But the backlash from loyal Rip Curl customers was strong and immediate, forcing the iconic surf brand to backtrack.
Lefties never seem to learn. Surfwear brand Rip Curl has already backtracked after facing an almighty backlash after they replaced a brave female surfer with a trans woman in a marketing campaign for its women's range. The backlash saw people vowing to never buy Rip Curl again. Some folks even burnt their existing Rip Curl collection. Stephanie Bastian from Women's Forum Australia joins me now. I've been watching the backlash online, Stephanie, and Rip Curl, I think, had no idea what they were getting into. I don't understand how they could be so blindsided, how they could be so ignorant of the activism they were entering into. But at least they've realised their mistake and they have apologised.
Yes, they have apologised, and you would have thought after Target, Bud Light, even Terry White, which was an Australian chemist brand that went woke on the whole gender issue, you would have thought they would have learnt their lesson by now. What you have is a female CEO who has spent her entire career advocating for female surfers, fighting for equal pay when it comes to prize money, running organisations and groups to increase female participation in surfing. She has turned around and she has let women down. Now that she's the top of an organisation, she's Rip Curl's first CEO, mind you, first female CEO, and she's let women down by pushing this woke agenda. And Australian public have said no. They've said they've had enough. It's affected everyday mum and dads who buy this brand, who spend time and money getting their kids into sport. You know, Rip Curl is a iconic, or was an iconic sporting brand, very popular amongst Australians. And now that they've come out pushing this woke agenda, this toxic woke agenda, they've said no, and they've pushed back in a very strong way. Rip Curl, of course, have gone to ground. They have issued an apology, but we've heard absolutely nothing from Brooke Farris, the CEO. She is refusing to do interviews, she's refusing to apologise, and really, as a woman that has pushed fairness and equality in this surfing sport, she should be coming out and making statements.
Sky News host Peter Credlin agrees, saying the brand is in trouble following the stunt.
Rip Curl's in trouble. They had an ad promoting women's surfing featuring a transgender surfer, a woman, but obviously a biological man. A whole lot of the women were upset about this, the female surfers. They said, what about us? And one of them, in fact, Bethany Hamilton, she was dropped a few months ago by Rip Curl because she voiced her opposition to men in women's sports. Well, they've dropped it now, but why do they have to blood-nose women's sport like this? Keith?
No. Peter, I might not know a lot, but if you knock out 99.99% of the people you're trying to sell your product to, well, they're not going to buy it.
Yep.
If you're trying to sell
woke, go
women's
broke.
bikinis, women's swimwear, everything else, and you're targeting them through it's a man, right? Let's be really frank. A man in women's outfits, well, that ain't going to fly. And I think that they're absolutely right to be upset about this. Absolutely right.
The transgender women in sports debate really kicked off back in early 2022 when Lia Thomas stormed home to victory at the NCAA Championships, causing backlash from her fellow competitors and fans. And 2 years later, the backlash against Lia Thomas has not died down, with former teammates still criticising the swimmer for her unfair advantage, reveals Sky News All-Star Piers Morgan and Thomas's former teammate Paula Scanlan.
If I may, Paula, you have competed against Lia Thomas. In your estimation, how unfair is it that Lia Thomas was allowed to compete against biological females and is now trying to seek legal redress to do so, but potentially removing one woman from the women's Olympic team?
Yeah, it's incredibly unfair. I think just looking at the situation, Lia Thomas was the tallest person on both the men's and the women's team at the University of Pennsylvania. Just the height difference, the muscle difference, the length in bones, the body shape, and also the hormones that males have that women don't. That was obviously a huge factor in Lia being much better than the rest of us. To put it into perspective, the University of Pennsylvania has never had an NCAA female champion until Lia Thomas came around. And I think that really shows that our program went from hardly ever having anyone qualify for the NCAA championship to having somebody win an event.
And you didn't actually compete against her, I think. You competed with her, is that right?
Yes, I swam different events than Lia, but I was on the same team.
Right. I mean, I've just seen, some of the video clips from some of the races she was in, both when she competed as a man and then as a woman. And the difference is just astounding. I mean, in one race, she was winning by over 50 seconds or something crazy.
Yeah, and in that event, actually, the second place finisher was a University of Pennsylvania swimmer that lost to Lia by over 2 laps in the pool.
And if you were a member of the women's Olympic team for the United States, a woman, and you lost your place to Lia Thomas now, how do you think you'd feel?
I would feel terrible, and in fact, the girls that Lia beat when Lia won the 500-yard freestyle, the second, third, and fourth place finisher were Olympians themselves, some of which having medals. So it already happened, and it would definitely happen in the Olympics, and I think that would be a big scandal because it would affect not just NCAA athletes, but all women from all different countries that compete in the sport of swimming, and also in other sports that they allow this to happen in, they will also be affected as well.
Piers Morgan went on to say the playing field needs to be fairer for biological women.
Explain to me why this isn't just insane. That Lia Thomas, who, as we just heard, was not just the tallest boy in her college when she was competing as a biological male, but obviously the tallest girl as well. How can any of this be fair?
I think, okay, so this is a really interesting topic for someone who is gender critical, because on this show before we have discussed puberty blockers and whether children should be allowed access to them when they are 12, 13 years of age. Now, boys develop when they are 12, 13. The second that they start to have testosterone, that is when they grow bigger, they have a larger muscle mass than women. If you don't want to see trans women competing in women's sports, then you're going to have to allow young children who do not feel, who are experiencing gender dysphoria, to have those drugs when they're younger.
No, not at all.
You are.
In my estimation, you do one of two things. It's very straightforward. This whole supposed insolvable problem is very straightforward. Trans women either compete against other trans women in an entirely new category, as there are more and more of them competing, or they compete against their biological sex, because that is the biology they've been born with. Tell me why that's not fair.
I don't think it's fair that people who've experienced gender dysphoria when they're growing up and don't feel that they are in the right body should not be allowed to compete in sports. And if you're going to take away their rights...
Why don't you care? Look, you go on about women's rights, and a lot of the time I agree with you. I want women to enjoy utter fairness and equality.
I think this is fair.
How can you possibly sign up to something that is so grotesquely unfair and unequal to women's rights?
Because Lia Thomas didn't wake up one morning and suddenly decide, I'm going to be able to win in the women's category, so I'm going to
That's
switch.
exactly what she's doing.
That's not what happened.
That's what she's doing.
Lia Thomas, she is a woman, and so she is competing as a woman.
She's a trans woman.
She is a woman.
She's a trans woman.
We can go back and forth on
She's
this.
a trans woman born born with a biological male body, which gives her an immediate, massive advantage over women who weren't.
So why aren't other members of her team happy that they're finally winning and qualifying for all of the things that they never qualified for
Because
before?
they can all see that it's unfair.
Is there not a little bit of jealousy?
No, it's just they know that at some stage Lia Thomas is going to probably win the Olympic gold medal.
Oh no, that would be awful for America.
Yeah,
that would be terrible.
It would be, here's why it's terrible. The United States women's soccer team, let's call it soccer for the benefit of this discussion, because they call themselves that, were #1 in the world, the best women's soccer players on the planet, and they got beaten, I think it was 8-1 by the Dallas under-15 boys team. Right? That is the point, is that it wasn't that the women's team weren't great as a woman's team at soccer. It's that put them against a bunch of kids who are male, with male physiology, they got hammered.
Okay.
That's why we separate the sexes.
So what do we say about trans women then? Do we just say they're not allowed to play sport ever?
I just told you what we do.
No, because...
They compete against their biological sex, which is perfectly reasonable and fair.
That's not reasonable.
It's perfectly reasonable.
The curse of Go Woke, Go Broke has also overtaken Sports Illustrated, with the iconic magazine suffering from falling revenues after featuring a female trans athlete on the cover, explains Sky News All-Star Liz Storer.
You've got a good Sports Illustrated story for us.
Another form of go woke, go broke. So Sports Illustrated in 2020 decided to use a trans model on the cover of their 2020 issue, and they've kept this up in successive magazines. Well, it will come as a shock to no one that news broke this week that much of the staff of Sports Illustrated and possibly all remaining writers and editors received layoff notices on Friday because they're not doing so well. Turns out, not all sex sells, just some.
Well,
Are you surprised, James?
Well, look, I think actually it's important not to sort of turn this around too much, because the thing is actually is that Sports Illustrated had been a declining brand forever. So really what the lesson here is that when you are in decline, don't try these stunts to try and get some media hype and attention, because it's not that they went broke because they did these stunts. They were going broke, and then they decided to start doing these woke stunts to try and get some controversy and maybe sell some copies or something. That's actually, the correct order in which these things always wind up occurring.
And it's not only in the pool that trans swimmers are creating controversy. Sky News All-Star Megyn Kelly reveals the disturbing story of a trans swimmer who was found in the women's locker room with young girls during a swim meet.
We talked about this guy. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago? We talked about this guy. He's at it again. He's a serial swimmer with 13-year-olds. He's part of a swim club that is for little girls. It's called the Otters Swim Club up in Ontario, Canada. His name is Nicholas Cepeda. He goes by Melody Wiseheart. I mean, it'd be funny if it weren't so disturbing. He's now, last time he was swimming with 13-year-olds, now he's been in the locker room at a meet involving 8-year-olds up to 16-year-olds. Went into the locker room and changed with the little girls, observed and reported by Rebel News, who then found a little girl who confirmed she was in there and saw it, and that this is an intact male. No surgeries have been done. Not that that would help, but just for what it's worth. And so Melody would really like us to look the other way as he takes up a swim lane against these other little prepubescent girls. This is a sick man. And the parents and the league and Canada are allowing it. Rebel News took out its camera to try to photograph this guy as they blew the whistles and they dove into the pool. And somebody came over to him, and I thought for sure this woman's going to say, "What are you photographing?" "Oh my God, there's a man. What do you mean, huh?" She was like, "Put down the camera. No videotaping allowed." "Madam, you're focused on the wrong issue. There's a grown man in a bathing suit next to the 10-year-olds out there. For the love of God, somebody, I'm sick of how nice the Canadians are. You need somebody like me to get up there and sit poolside, and trust me, I will take care of him, and he will not be swimming down that pool. I would be in there like I was a drowning woman. Like, hello, help me. Nicholas Cepeda's in the lake. Get him at it. Something's going to have to change. This can't go on.
And away from sports, Rita Panahi exposes the ludicrous lengths a trans woman went to for internet clout.
Trump's biggest campaigners. Now, here's another lefty losing it. A trans activist harassing a retail worker for internet clout. He demands, or I should say she demands, the bewildered employee supply tampons for men. I mean, this chick doesn't want pink packaging on her sanitary products.
All right, out here shopping for tampons, but they don't have the tampons for men in yet. I'm gonna ask.
Hey, excuse me, sir. So I found your normal tampons, but I'm actually looking for tampons for men today. Where would those be at?
Let me see what you got.
I got these.
Okay.
But I want the ones for men, not those.
I don't see the word woman on here. I think these are the ones for men.
No, you see how it's all like pink and purple? I'm not trying to pay the pink tax on this. I just want normal tampons. You know, like the ones marketed for men.
For men?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just wish these narcissists would not harass retail workers and film them and share it on social media to try to shame them. It is just such ugly, ugly tactics, and you know what? It's not winning their movement any fans. Now, joining